My name is Emily, and my daughter's name is Lily. We had moved to a small town in a distant state, hoping for a fresh start. Little did we know that our lives were about to take a dark and terrifying turn. It was a warm summer evening, and the sun was beginning to dip below the horizon as we made our way through a quaint, unfamiliar town. We had decided to take a road trip and explore the area, eager to embrace the adventure that awaited us in our new home. As the fuel gauge in our car dipped perilously low, we pulled into a parlor store to fill up on gas. The neon sign overhead buzzed lazily, casting an eerie glow on the surroundings. The store seemed deserted, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease as I parked the car. "Stay in the car, Lily," I instructed, unbuckling my seatbelt and stepping out of the vehicle. I was determined to make this quick, not wanting to linger in this unfamiliar place any longer than necessary. I walked toward the convenience store, clutching my purse tightly. The bell above the door jingled as I entered, and a gust of chilly air washed over me. The store was dimly lit, its shelves lined with dusty knickknacks and snacks that had long since expired. As I approached the counter to pay for the gas, I noticed a tall, sinister-looking man loitering near the entrance. His greasy hair hung in disheveled strands, and his eyes bore into me with a predatory intensity that sent shivers down my spine. I quickly completed the transaction, my heart pounding, and made my way back to the car. But as I approached, I realized with horror that Lily was no longer in the back seat. Panic surged through my veins, and I felt my world unraveling. I turned to see the sinister man from the store standing beside the car, his hand outstretched toward Lily, who was now sitting in the passenger seat. Her innocent eyes met mine, filled with confusion and fear. "Hey, pretty girl," the man leered. "Why don't you come with me? We'll have so much fun." Time seemed to slow as my maternal instincts kicked into overdrive. I screamed with every ounce of strength in my body. "Hold him!" My desperate cry shattered the eerie silence of the parking lot, and instinctively, I reached for the man's wrist, trying to prevent him from taking my precious daughter. The commotion attracted the attention of a passerby who rushed to our aid. Together, we managed to restrain the man until the police arrived. The arrival of the police was swift, but to our horror, the malicious intent had vanished. The sinister man claimed innocence, insisting that he had merely been offering Lily a piece of candy. There was no concrete evidence to prove his sinister intentions. As the police questioned him, the man's gaze bore into mine, a malevolent smile playing on his lips. It was clear that he had slipped through our fingers, leaving us shaken and vulnerable. That night, as Lily and I returned to the safety of our new home, I held her close, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled over me, a haunting reminder of the darkness that could lurk in the most unexpected places. And so I share this story as a warning to all parents, a chilling reminder never to take your eyes off your children, especially in unfamiliar places. The world can be a dangerous and unpredictable place, and it's our duty as parents to protect our loved ones from the shadows that may lurk just beyond our sight. It had been a particularly rough day at work, and all I wanted was to get home and forget about it. The traffic was moving at a snail's pace, and I could feel the tension building inside me. My hands gripped the steering wheel as frustration gnawed at me. It seemed like every driver on the road was out to get me. As I merged onto the freeway, a large, menacing-looking truck pulled up beside me. The driver's face was obscured by a tattered cap, and all I could see were a pair of cold, calculating eyes. The truck was old and battered, covered in dents and scratches that gave it a sinister appearance. I tried to ignore it and focus on the road, but the truck stayed right beside me, as if it were stalking me. My heart began to race, and I could feel a sense of unease creeping over me. I decided to change lanes to get away from the truck, but as soon as I did, it followed suit. No matter how many times I changed lanes, it stayed right beside me, like a malevolent shadow. Panic started to set in, as I realized that this was more than just a coincidence. I had to get away from this truck, but it seemed determined to stay with me. I dialed 911 on my cell phone and explained the situation to the dispatcher. She assured me that a patrol car would be dispatched to my location. I began to speed up, hoping to lose the truck in the traffic, but it matched my speed effortlessly. The driver seemed to be playing a sick game of cat and mouse with me. My hands were trembling, and I could feel the sweat on my brow. The dispatcher on the other end of the line urged me to stay calm and keep driving until the police arrived. Suddenly, the truck swerved dangerously close to my car, causing me to slam on the brakes. Horns blared and tires screeched as other drivers swerved to avoid a collision. I managed to regain control of my car, but the truck was now in front of me, blocking my path. It slowed down, forcing me to do the same. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched in horror as the truck's brake lights flickered and it came to a complete stop in the middle of the freeway. I slammed my foot on the brakes, narrowly avoiding a collision. Other cars screeched to a halt behind me, creating a chaotic traffic jam. I looked around frantically for an escape route, but there was none. The truck's driver stepped out of his vehicle, his face still obscured by the cap. He approached my car slowly, deliberately. I could see a wicked smile forming on his lips. I locked all the doors and rolled up the windows, but that did little to ease my fear. The dispatcher continued to reassure me, but I knew that the police were still minutes away. The man reached my car, and his eyes bore into mine through the rearview mirror. He raised a hand and pointed a finger at me, as if accusing me of some unforgivable crime. Then, he pulled out a rusty, blood-stained knife. Terror washed over me as I realized that I was trapped in a nightmare with no way out. The man began to scratch the blade against my window, producing an eerie, high-pitched screeching sound that sent shivers down my spine. I closed my eyes, praying for the police to arrive in time, but the scratching continued, each pass of the knife bringing it closer to breaking through the glass. I was trapped in my own personal hell, with a deranged stranger determined to torment me. As the minutes ticked by, the line with the dispatcher went silent, and the scratching grew louder. The world outside my car became a blur of darkness and fear. My fate hung in the balance, and all I could do was hope that help would arrive before it was too late. Just when I thought all hope was lost, the distant wail of sirens pierced the night air. It was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. The man with the knife hesitated for a moment, looking around as the police cars approached. Panic flashed across his face, and he darted back to his truck. The officers arrived in a flurry of flashing lights and uniformed authority. They surrounded the menacing truck, weapons drawn, shouting at the driver to surrender. He had no choice but to comply. They pulled him out of the vehicle, handcuffed him, and read him his rights. I was finally free, and the relief was overwhelming. The police took my statement, and I recounted the horrifying ordeal, the fear, and the feeling of utter helplessness. They assured me that the man would face the full force of the law for his actions. As they led the man away in handcuffs, I caught a glimpse of his face for the first time. It was contorted with rage and madness, and I shuddered at the sight. I couldn't help but wonder what had driven him to such a terrifying act of aggression. In the days that followed, I tried to put the incident behind me, but the memory of those cold, calculating eyes and that blood-stained knife haunted my nightmares. I became hyper-aware of my surroundings while driving, constantly checking my rearview mirror and fearing that the nightmare would return. The police assured me that the man was in custody and that I had nothing to worry about, but the trauma of that night lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had crossed paths with pure evil on that desolate stretch of highway. Over time, the fear began to ebb, but the memory of that night would forever serve as a reminder of the thin line between ordinary life and the horrors that can lurk just beneath the surface. Road rage had taken on a whole new meaning for me, a dark and chilling reality that I would never forget. It was an autumn night, unlike any other. The rain poured from the heavens with an intensity that felt almost supernatural, like the heavens themselves were weeping. I had just finished a long and exhausting day at work, and the prospect of a warm home was the only thing keeping me going as I embarked on my 50-minute journey back. My house was located outside the city, nestled amidst the tranquility of the woods. The drive through the forest belt was usually serene, a calming end to my day. But that night, the storm had turned the narrow road into a treacherous path, filled with puddles and obscured by the thick curtains of rain. As I maneuvered through the winding road, my headlights caught a glimpse of something unusual on the side. A car stranded and seemingly abandoned in the torrential downpour. I couldn't just pass by without checking if anyone needed help. So I pulled over and stepped out, feeling the icy rainwater seep through my clothes. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached the deserted vehicle. Through the rain-drenched windows, I spotted a faint glimmer of light. Someone was inside, and they appeared to be fumbling with a flashlight. "Hey, do you need help?" I shouted over the sound of the rain, my voice shaky. The flashlight abruptly went out, plunging the surroundings into complete darkness. Panic began to claw at the edges of my mind, but before I could react, I heard the unmistakable crunch of footsteps coming towards me through the mud and leaves. My breath caught in my throat as one of the figures hissed, "Grab him." They were lurking somewhere in the shadows, just beyond my sight, their sinister intentions all too apparent. Adrenaline surged through my veins, and I darted back towards my own car, my heart hammering like a drum. I flung myself inside, slammed the door shut, and jammed the key into the ignition. With trembling hands, I turned the key, and the engine roared to life. I wasted no time in slamming my foot onto the gas pedal, propelling my car forward. The tires fought for traction on the rain-slicked road as I sped away from that menacing spot. Panic and fear coursed through me as I drove faster than I ever had before, leaving the abandoned car and those ominous figures behind. Several miles down the road, I spotted a dimly lit gas station in the distance. It was a welcome sight, a potential sanctuary from whatever danger lurked in the darkness behind me. I pulled into the station, parked my car, and waited, my eyes fixed on the rearview mirror, expecting to see those sinister figures emerging from the woods. I decided not to head straight home. My gut told me it would be unwise to lead them to my doorstep. I anxiously checked my phone, ready to dial the police at the first sign of pursuit. Time seemed to stretch into an eternity, but after what felt like an agonizing 20 minutes, there was no sign of the mysterious strangers. My racing heart finally began to slow, and I allowed myself to breathe a sigh of relief. Eventually, I mustered the courage to continue my journey home. The rain had subsided, and the forest that had once been a tranquil escape now felt hauntingly different. I couldn't shake the fear that they might still be out there, lurking in the shadows. As I arrived home, I locked every door and window, unable to shake the feeling that those individuals might have discovered where I lived. I replayed the terrifying encounter in my mind over and over, questioning whether I should have called the police immediately. But deep down, I knew I had little evidence to provide them. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't escape the shiver that coursed through my body whenever I thought about that terrible encounter on the rain-soaked road. It was a night when the line between safety and peril had blurred, and a reminder that sometimes the darkness of the night can hide unimaginable dangers.